Alright, so Terrifier 3 has finally released, and normally I would not be this excited. Honestly, I probably wouldn't be talking about it. And that's because for the longest time I could never really get into those two Terrifier movies. I honestly just kind of thought they were lame, but recently I got this random urge to just rewatch the two. And after rewatching them, yeah, Art the Clown is awesome. These movies are awesome, and I immediately booked my tickets for Terrifier 3. And about 15 minutes in, I kind of got the feeling that, yeah, this is the best Terrifier film out of all of them. So let me get into my positives before I get into my very few negatives, because as I said, I do really like this movie. I'm going to start with what everybody wants to know: Art the Clown and the kills. This is definitely Art the Clown at his best. I have never enjoyed watching Art do his thing more than I did in this movie. There are a couple moments in the first two movies where I was dying laughing at Art, but in this movie I felt like every other scene this guy was in was just drop dead funny. And the kills in this movie were really, really good. I think there were a couple in here that definitely tops the big ones from the last two. It felt like every other kill in this movie was basically the bedroom scene. I know a lot of people have been saying that, but the gore in this movie is crazy. And speaking of the gore, it is the best it's looked yet. The practical effects are just getting better and better. In the first two, especially in the second one, there were a couple times where you could tell that, it was a mannequin. It didn't really look great. But in Terrifier 3, there's really no point in the movie where you can really tell that it's not real. Of course, then by the fact that it's in a movie, but yeah. But I also wanted to highlight Sienna's character, because I feel like in this one, she is really solidifying herself as one of the best final girls of all time. The performance that Lauren Rivera delivers in this movie, I think, is her best performance out of the two films, and it was definitely interesting to see the kind of decisions that they made with Sienna's character going forward. Again, this is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to get too into the details, but I do think that they are starting to explore some very interesting stuff with Sienna, and I hope that it's furthered for Terrifier 4, which has been confirmed. So I also want to say the cinematography and lighting in this movie is way better than the first two by far. Hands down, this is the best looking Terrifier movie. There still is some scenes where the lighting wasn't really my cup of tea, but for the most part I do think that the progression Damien Leone has had with this series is really crazy. Also, I don't know what camera they used to shoot this thing, but the kind of grainy film look that this movie has, I was really digging it the whole time. I thought that it looked amazing, especially on the big screen, and I hope for Terrifier 4 that he uses that same camera. I don't know what kind of camera he used, but it looks amazing. I also want to say the set pieces and scenes in this movie were really creative. There's a lot of scenes in here that I never expected to see Art the Clown in. And again, a lot of these scenarios were really funny. David Howard Thornton just really knows what he's doing with this character, and I can't wait to see him continue in Terrifier 4. And speaking of Terrifier 4, they laid the groundworks so well for that movie, to the point where I think that Terrifier 4, just based off of what we got at the end of Terrifier 3, is gonna be the best one. And of course the soundtrack was really good. That's one of my favorite things about the Terrifier movies. The soundtracks are usually really good, and it continues into Terrifier 3. I think the Terrifier 3 soundtrack, it's not as good as the second one, but I still really enjoyed it. Now let's move on to some of my negatives with the film, because I do have just two negatives that are both with characters in the film. The first is with Vicky, or Victoria, whatever you want to call her. I never really enjoyed the side characters in Terrifier. I always just prefer to see Art the Clown doing his thing, because that's really what I'm here for, is Art. Because that's really why I started to enjoy the series, was because of Art. And with Vicky in this one, I feel like she was just given way too much screen time. The things that they do with her just kind of felt out of place and really weird. So every time she was on screen, I was kind of not enjoying the film as much as I would if it was just Art. And they do explain why she has to be there, and I do think that that is a cool premise, but I do feel like every time she was there, it was kind of just because she had the ability to talk, which Art doesn't, and it was just kind of a crutch for the writers to fall back on when they need an explanation for something. And when she was first introduced in Terrifier 1, I didn't like her. When she appeared at the end of Terrifier 2, I definitely didn't like her, and now in this one, I just like her even less. And again, I feel like she was just given way too much screen time, opposed to a character that I do like, Jonathan, who was kind of sidelined and forgot about during this whole movie, which really annoyed me because I felt like this was Elliot Fullman's best depiction of the character. Obviously there's not much to go off because he was just in the last movie, but I feel like his performance in this one was really elevated since then. And there were some new characters that were introduced that I really did enjoy, but the whole time I was just kind of thinking, like, where's Jonathan? Why haven't they really utilized Jonathan? And as the movie progresses, it really starts to feel more weird that Jonathan isn't more central to the plot. Again, I'm trying to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, so I can't really tell you why it's so weird, but as you're watching the movie, you'll kind of notice that, oh, why isn't Jonathan there? But that's really it for my negatives, so all in all, I think Terrifier 3 is the best of the series, and I think Damien Leone continues to impress me with every entry he adds into the series. And as I said, Terrifier 4 I think is going to be the best Terrifier movie, and I can't wait for what they do. I might make a spoiler review of this movie because I really do want to talk specifics, especially when it comes to that ending and that opening scene. That opening scene was incredible. So let me know in the comments if you guys would like to see a full spoiler review of the film. Now, as for if I would recommend it, it's kind of an iffy recommend. And the reason why I would give it that is because of its gore and its violence. It's not for everybody, for sure. But if you're a horror fan, I would definitely recommend it.